Shalom, this is Ronit Ziv Krieger, Education Director for JWRP. Welcome to this webinar for the Year of Growth series. This one is on honor and dignity due to every person. I find with regards to dignity that there's a big difference for me between the intellectual idea that each person deserves to be honored and my ability to actually do that. Sometimes my attention is so focused on stretching to reach a goal that I fall short of affirming others and reflecting to them their true immense dignity. So as I'm sharing this webinar, please know that I'm a learner working on this and seeking to grow along with others. Start off by sharing something of why you find this topic of dignity meaningful to you. What's important and what you hope to be learning with your group. Begin with asking the women in your group to consider where in their families, workplaces, or communities do issues of dignity and honor come up. Ask each to share a few sentences and jot down the ideas so that you can refer back to them during the session. The Hebrew term for dignity is kevod habriot, which literally means honor or dignity of the created beings. The word in Hebrew for honor, kavod, is related to the word for weight, as in gravitas, or giving weight to the presence of another human being. Dr. Donna Hicks is a psychologist at Harvard University who worked on facilitating dialogue in many world conflicts. As she worked in the field, she noticed that there was another conversation going on under the table at each of these dialogues that made them so difficult to resolve. People were really saying, "How dare you treat me like this? Don't you see that we're human beings? We want to be treated like human beings." And this was preventing the parties from moving forward. She realized that these emotional reactions were about dignity, about how their dignity was violated in the conflict. Because of this realization, she now devotes her professional time exclusively to researching dignity. Dr. Hicks defines dignity as our inherent value and worth. We all come into the world equally valuable and equally worthy, and each of us is equally worthy of having that dignity honored. Our dignity is vulnerable, and we have responsibility to give it love and attention and to protect our own dignity and the dignity of those around us. For more information about Dr. Hicks's work on dignity, see her TED Talk on her website or read her book titled Dignity, the Essential Role It Plays in Resolving Conflict. This month we're talking about kevod habriot, the honor or dignity of all creatures, or more specifically of all human beings. One of the central values of Judaism is that we're all, each one of us, no matter what we look like or what we earn or what we do or what our abilities or disabilities are, we're all worthy of respect and dignity. As you plan your session with your participants and think about this concept, think of a way that you can make this session one that reaches participants' heads, hearts, and hands. That it reaches them intellectually, affects them emotionally, and leads them to action. Our goal is for the learning to impact them and their families on all three of these levels. One way to have this session impact the women's heads, hearts, and hands is to combine the learning component with a visit to a local organization that works to protect the dignity of all people, especially the vulnerable. Perhaps you could combine the learning with a trip to a local group home and engage in an activity with the residents there. Perhaps you could volunteer with a local refugee resettlement agency, or have participants' families attend an event with a local friendship circle that builds social relationships between teenagers with disabilities and their typical counterparts. Even if you decide to have one of the women host a session in her home or host the session at your organization, you can bring in a speaker from one of those groups or do some sort of project to support the organization. For example, you can have someone from a refugee resettlement agency come in and do a coat or blanket drive for the people they help. Or you can have someone talk about inclusion and paint a mensch bench for your local day school. As always, when you plan your session, give some thought as to how you will involve your women in planning and leading the session. Can one of your women help define an organization to visit or a project to do? Can one help lead a conversation? Do any of them have a child with a disability and would talk about what others can do to help? Would any of the women like to lead a brainstorming session with your group of what you can do as a unit to bring the Jewish value of human dignity to your families and communities? Would someone be able to put together a document with information about local organizations that work for this value and with whom participants can get involved? When you meet for the session, either at someone's home or at your organization or at a local organization that engages in kivud habriot activities, help the women transition from the rest of their lives into the sacred time together. You may want to lead them in some bracha, blessing, on learning Torah. You may also wish to start a tradition of having the learning that you do together serve as a merit for someone's recovery from illness or as a merit for victims of current world events. It may be a revelation to your participants that Judaism sees the act of learning together as a merit that can help others. Remind the women that you're all in the sisterhood safe space and recall the last session together. Find a way to allow each person to share something from how that learning has impacted her life. If the group is small enough and the time is sufficient, you could share in a large group. Otherwise, ask each to share with a partner, perhaps someone she's not spoken with recently. Ask them, has the learning of the last session impacted you? If so, how? If not, what could have been helpful to you? To start, you might want to share how the learning has affected you personally. This will help set the stage for others to be forthcoming with their sharing. Tell the women that human nature is to be critical and discerning. While this serves us well at times, it comes with a liability of not treating others, and sometimes ourselves, with dignity. From ancient times, humanity has been amiss in treating people with dignity. God, Torah, and our sages offer powerful tools to guide us to grow to our full potential, which includes treating all people with dignity. Ask the women to brainstorm together what they know about the ancient world, especially the Greek and Romans. The women may mention pagan gods, Greek art. Read together the excerpt from Ken Spiro's book, World Perfect, about the disregard that ancient culture had for human life. If your women had Ken Spiro as a tour guide on their momentum trip, remind them of the guiding he did for you. After you read this shocking text, ask the women for their reactions. Do they think that modern world has moved completely beyond the ancient disregard for the value of human life? How much does the world around you honor and respect the dignity of each and every human being? Now show a video about the Ro'im Rachok program in the Israeli army. This program was started by parents of teenagers with autism who were concerned that their children would not have a place in the army, a cornerstone of Israeli society. They designed a unit that is modeled for inclusion and truly illustrates the value of kivud habriot, the honor and dignity of every human being. If you don't have a way to show the video, read the article on pages 6 and 7 instead. What is so remarkable about Ro'im Rachok? Your women may answer that in the Ro'im Rachok program, the soldiers are truly valued. They're seen as they are, as people with autism who have unique needs, but also seen for their strengths. the unique way that they can help with reconnaissance that more typical soldiers might not be able to do. The people who build and support Roim Rachok saw teenagers with autism and did not feel pity or, God forbid, scorn. Instead, they recognized that their dignity and ability gave them the opportunity to help the Israeli army defend the Jewish state. Use the reflection questions to get the women talking about how to find strengths in their children and others when they initially see annoyance or difficulties. Invite them to wonder how they might create opportunities for people with disabilities to help them bring forth their strengths. Ask the women what accounts for the difference between how the ancient world treated people with disabilities and this wonderful example of inclusion in the Israeli army. Tell the women that one of the many revolutions that Judaism brought to the world was its understanding of human dignity of every single human being. Read together the Torah text from Genesis about the creation of the first human being, Adam. Note that the Torah tells us 3 times that humans are created in the image of God. Ask the women what they think this means. If God does not have an image, how can we be created in the image of God? You may wish to give them 2 to 3 minutes to quickly sketch out what they think it means to be created in the image of God. Have a go-around and have the women present their thoughts. Let me share a teaching from Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik from his famous book, The Lonely Man of Faith. It's an interesting idea with implications for parenting. With that, it does add a complexity to the idea of dignity, which may not be a fit for all. You know your group best. Consider whether or not to include it. Rabbi Soloveitchik suggests that the Torah creation story of Genesis chapters 1 and 2 offers 2 models of human dignity and worthiness. In Genesis chapter 1, Adam is created in the image of God, as you just read, and God charges humanity with a mission of ruling the environment, developing it, transforming it. The Torah uses the name Elokim, a divine name used when referring to God as creator. Soloveitchik's idea here is that people in God's image experience honor and dignity when they create, develop mastery, contribute to the environment, and actualize their divine potential. There's human dignity that stems from creativity, effort, accomplishment, and contribution to one's community and environment. From the 2nd chapter of Genesis, a second important model of dignity arises. In this chapter, God breathes the breath of life into the nostrils of Adam. Rabbi Soloveitchik describes this aspect of human experience not about accomplishment or about actualizing divine potential, but about awareness of communing with the great self. Each breath we take can be a reminder of our inherent worthiness and potential closeness with the divine. Rabbi David Aaron, in his book, The God-Powered Life, puts it this way: our soul is part of God. Each and every one of us is a masterpiece, a piece of the master, and surely deserve to be treated that way. These 2 notions of dignity seeming to be contradictory, one based on outward creativity, effort, achievement, mastery, and the other based on inward, intrinsic worthiness, no matter what. Rabbi David Aaron suggests that balancing these 2 can be a source of tremendous creativity, productivity, stability, and fulfillment. What might this kind of balancing look like? He continues, spiritually healthy people intuit their godly greatness from within and are constantly driven to actualize their divine potential by doing great acts for their community and the world and God. Spiritually healthy people also intuit the godly greatness of others and are eager to support others, including differently abled people, in experiencing and expressing their divine potential. As a parent, I find this question of balancing effort and accomplishment on one hand and inherent worthiness on the other hand as an ongoing challenge and opportunity. How as parents might we aptly grow in balancing these two seeming contradictory notions of dignity in our own lives? And how might we model it for our children and support them with such balance? If people are all so different, how can we all be created in the image of God? Read together the Mishnah Sanhedrin and discuss the reflection questions. Focus the women on the comparison between a coin engraver and God. A coin engraver stamps out many coins from one die, and they each look the same. But God's greatness is that God created us all in God's image, and yet we all look different. Relate this Mishnah to the discussions about unity and diversity that you had last month. Elicit the women's ideas regarding what this Mishnah teaches regarding the dignity of each person. What are the implications of the fact that we're all taught that saving one person is like saving the world, or that each person is totally unique? How could these words change the way that our communities and the world function? Remind the women of their visit to Nalagaat, and a chesed organization on the Momentum trip, and connect the acts of loving kindness of those organizations to the Torah sources you're studying today. This is a good opportunity for one of the women to lead a conversation about what your group can do together in your community to protect Kvod Habriot, the honor and dignity of every human being, to give out a list of local organizations that would welcome volunteers to help them with this holy work. We'd be grateful if women post on the Year of Growth Facebook page things that they've done to support dignity within their family, workplace, community, or in helping a local organization. Brene Brown is a contemporary researcher who studies shames, the experience of thinking that there's something about us that if other people knew it, they would think us unworthy of connection. When people experience shame, they tend to run away and hide from their vulnerability. Brene Brown says that when we hide in this way, we lose the capacity for joy, gratitude, and creativity. She encourages us to let ourselves be seen and believe that we're enough. Connect Brown's valuable thoughts on shame and vulnerability to our Jewish idea of Kvod Habriot, the inherent worthiness of all people as created in the image of God. You may wish to bring in a text that the women may have studied on their Momentum trip from Pirkei Avot. Ben Zoma says, "Who is honored? One who gives honor to others." Ask the women if this is true in their experience. What does being honored have to do with giving honor to others? Interestingly, Donna Hicks, the Harvard researcher mentioned in the beginning, who had done so much work on dignity, says something very similar. When we honor someone's dignity, we strengthen our own. What might this mean? At this point, it's important to give the women some time to reflect upon and internalize the ideas from this session. You may wish to divide the women into groups of 2 or 3 and ask them to discuss the following questions. When is it easy for you to look at others and see the image of God inside of them? When is it more difficult for you to see the image of God in others? In addition, or as an alternative to the small group discussion, you may wish to have the women engage in a writing activity. Play a quiet, calm song for about 6 minutes and invite the women to write in silence and answer the reflective parenting questions. Alternatively, you could use the chart on pages 22 and 23. The goal of writing is to give each person time to reflect and personalize the learning. Invite participants to write freely, uncensored, and to imagine how they might be affected by the wisdom of the texts and the conversation. Now it's time to end the session. Summarize the main ideas explored in the session and highlight some of the comments and questions. Show the women where we have practical ideas to bring the value of Kvod HaBriot to our families. Ask the women to look through the suggestions and choose which ideas they would like to present to their families. Tell them that in your next session together you would like to hear how they implemented the ideas and what happened. Ask each woman to share one takeaway from the session. You could ask each woman to finish a sentence such as, "After this time together, I now commit to..." Challenge everyone to look for the image of God in people they meet next week, even when those people are difficult. Challenge them to think about ways in which the society around them has false ideas about what makes a person worthwhile or important, and what they can do to bring the message of human dignity to their families and communities. Ask them to come to the next session prepared to talk about what they've done. Remind participants that this is the end of our in-class time together, but the learning about dignity will go on in the partner sessions. Encourage the women to commit to their sessions, even if only 15 minutes a week. Look through the rest of the booklet with them and point out the fascinating topics to be covered with a partner. The Spotlight on Israel's Basic Law, Human Dignity and Liberty, with Yehudit Karps. Efforts to get this law passed. Personal reflections from Susan Stillman, city leader from the JCC of Greater Washington, about her experience as a mother of a son with a disability. And ideas from JWRP fashion trip participant, Mindy Shire, creator of Runaway of Dreams, about how to make change. Let the women know when and where the next session will take place, and ask whether anyone is interested in co-leading some of the session with you. If you're combining this session with a visit to a local organization or a project or talk from a speaker, please let us know what you're doing. Log on to your Year of Growth Facebook page and share your wisdom and creativity with your JWRP sisters. And invite participants, please, to share how this has impacted them, right there on the Facebook page. Page 19 has a wonderful poem you could close with, or invite women to share with their families, maybe at a dinner or Shabbat meal. The poem is called, "What Do We Do with a Variation?" Thank you for listening to this webinar and participating in this Year of Growth project. May our teaching and actions combine to create a world where all human beings are valued and considered equally worthy, and where we're all able to see the image of God in each and every person.